So I'm going to explain how to understand this question. And once you do understand it, it's actually a very quick question to get the answer to. So to give you a visual of what's going on here, let me draw a right triangle. And you can only do cosine, sine, and tangent, those trigonometric ratios, when dealing with a right triangle. So the fact they're talking about cosine means right away we draw a right triangle. And let's go ahead and write SOHCAHTOA up here just as a nice reference, where sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. So when they say cosine from x, let's just label one of these two acute angles as x. And whenever we're talking about a trigonometric ratio of sine, cosine, or tangent, you're always going from an acute angle, not from the right angle. So I just labeled one of them x, and they're saying cosine, in other words, adjacent over hypotenuse, is 5 over 13. So I'm going to go from x. In case you're curious, I think the easiest one to recognize is opposite, and then the hypotenuse is the one across from the right angle. And then by default, the other one from angle x is going to be adjacent, which basically means next to. So when they're saying adjacent over hypotenuse is 5 over 13, I'm going to label the adjacent and hypotenuse with that 5 and 13. And the opposite side ends up being the third number that satisfies this Pythagorean triple. So certain Pythagorean triples are just really good to know, like a 3, 4, 5 is a very common one, since 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared, so it satisfies Pythagorean theorem. Another common one is if you double those numbers, you get 6, 8, 10. And a third one is 5, 12, 13. So this is 12. You didn't have to know that, but it's just going to help us for just displaying what I'm trying to show you here. Now at this point, we're trying to find the value of sine 90 minus x. Well, what does 90 minus x really mean? And to understand that, you really need to know the relationship of all three angles in any triangle. So let's go to page 34 of our math reference document, more specifically side 4. Notice triangle sum theorem says all three angles in any triangle add up to 180. The corollary to that says if one of them is 90, in other words, we have a right triangle, the other two must add up to 90, which means that since this one is x, this other one must be 90 minus x, so that they add up to 90. Well, what is sine from that other angle, the one we're saying 90 minus x? If I do opposite from 90 over hypotenuse, I get 5 over 13. So that's my answer, 5 over 13. And if that looks familiar, it should. The idea here is that the sine from any angle is equal to the cosine from its complement. In other words, from the angle that adds up to 90 with the other angle. And I could go the other way. I could go cosine x is equal to sine 90 minus x. And this concept is called cofunction. So good thing to know there. And we could, next time we see something like this, because it said cosine was 5/13, what's sine of its complement? The same thing, 5/13.